Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with roast tenderloin of beef. Of course, this is super expensive, but look on the bright side. If you screw it up, you'll feel bad for weeks. But don't worry, I'm going to show you a method that's so easy, so foolproof, you're going to be shocked at how awesome your beef comes out. So we're going to start this off with a 2.5 to 3 pound tenderloin roast. This one comes from what they call the butt end. All right, it's the largest end of the tenderloin. And because of its size, it makes a really nice roast. And it also tends to be a little less expensive than the classic center cut tenderloin roasts, which are also sometimes called Chateaubriand. So we have a little bit of prep to do. We're going to remove what's called the silver skin, which is, yes, that shiny, silvery white skin. So you want to take a thin, sharp knife, all right, go underneath. You only want to get that silver skin. Do not cut into the meat too far. All right, so be careful. So I'm going to remove any obvious silver skin from the top. And it's pretty easy to see. But on that side, between those two little muscles, I don't want you digging down too deep. All right, you'll see when we slice this, it's not a problem. That fat really doesn't go in there too deeply. On the other side, there's a piece of meat attached, which they call the chain. And I'm going to leave it attached to the roast. But any of that external fat, like you see there, I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. So tenderloin is a really lean piece of meat, so we can leave a little bit of that white fat on there. But the tough part, the silver skin, you want to remove that. And I'm going to cut that little chunk of fat out there. But that's pretty much it. I'm going to flip it over. So on this side, there should just be a little bit of trimming required. So I'm going to slice that off. If I see any more silver skin, I'm going to take that off. And that is trimmed and ready to tie. All right, so we're going to take some butcher's string, and we're going to do a classic kind of trussing method. I'm going to start off by tying one end down, and then I'm going to just make a simple loop with the string, bring it over the loin, and just kind of cinch it up. And as you pull, it actually will tighten up beautifully. All right, so let's see another one here. So I just loop the string over, just like that. Bring it all the way over the loin, and then you simply center it and give it a little tug, and that string will cinch up. And you keep doing that every inch or two, and that's going to hold everything together nice and tight and allow for it to roast really evenly. Okay, so when you get to the end and you've made your last tie, flip it over and bring the string along the bottom. I'm going to loop it under once there, and I'm just going to tie that off where I started. And that's done. By the way, if you're getting this from a butcher, they will do all this trimming and tying for you. It costs a little extra, of course, but they'll do it. All right, so my beef tenderloin is prepped and ready to start. But before we start the cooking process, I have one more thing to prep because I'm doing a shallot and porcini mushroom sauce. I need to soak my dry porcini. We pour over water, we let it soak until it's soft, which will take about an hour. If you use warm water, it goes faster. Once they're soft, squeeze them out and chop in bite-sized pieces. Don't throw away the water. All right, I'm going to reserve that until I need it. All right, so when we're ready to start cooking the beef, I'm going to season that very, very generously with salt and freshly cracked black pepper. I'm going to put a heavy skillet on high heat. All right, a little bit of vegetable oil, and I'm going to sear that really well on all sides. I want a very brown crust, and I also want a nice fond in the bottom of the pan. And the fond, of course, you know, is that caramelized meat juice on the bottom. So I'm going to stay on medium-high to high heat the whole way here until I have a perfectly seared roast. When that happens, I'm going to remove the beef to a plate. I'm going to turn the heat down to medium. I'm going to throw in a chunk of butter, and I'm going to add lots of shallots and a pinch of salt. Now, what's going to happen? The liquid from the shallots is going to actually deglaze that fond from the bottom of the pan. I want to cook those shallots in that butter for about 5-6 minutes, all right, until they start to turn golden brown. At that point, I'm going to deglaze the pan with tarragon vinegar. If you don't have that, you can just use regular white wine vinegar. You could even use white wine if you want. But I do want a little bit of acidity. You're going to pour that in, stir it around. It's going to evaporate pretty quickly. And when it looks like that, I'm going to go ahead and pour in some stock or broth. I'm using chicken. Veal stock, if you can get it, really is what you want to use here. But if not, I suggest a nice, high-quality chicken broth. All right. At that point, I'm going to add in my diced porcini mushroom. All right, I'm going to toss in some salt and pepper. We're going to adjust that at the end, but I'm going to put in a little bit here. And because this is a special occasion and we want it a little bit more luxurious, I'm going to put in a splash of heavy cream and then a big splash of the water we soaked the mushrooms in. Of course, I strained it because it could have sand in it. So strain it, a splash of that. All right, I'm going to toss my beef back in. I'm going to toss it around in that sauce a little bit. And that's going to go in a 325 degree oven until it reaches an internal temperature of 125. That's for a perfect medium rare, a little bit on the rare side. So mine took about 45 minutes at 325. And because you're roasting it very gently, you're going to get a perfect tenderloin that's evenly cooked throughout, a perfect pink. All right, I'm going to remove my tenderloin to a plate, cover loosely with foil, and that has to rest at least 10 minutes while we finish our sauce, which is quite simple because it's already been roasting with the tenderloin. All right, I'm simply going to put that on high heat, bring it up to a boil. When I'm happy with the consistency, I'm going to turn off the heat. I'm going to toss in some salt and pepper. I'm going to throw in our traditional chunk of cold butter, stir that in. When it's almost melted, the last ingredient, a big, giant pinch of fresh tarragon. And of course, tarragon is a main flavoring in béarnaise, which is a very popular sauce for roast beef tenderloin. All right, you're going to taste for salt and pepper, and that sauce is done. So simple, so amazingly elegant and delicious. So of course, you're going to cut the string off your tenderloin. You're going to place it back on the sauce if you want, maybe some more herb, maybe surround it with potatoes and bring it to the table just like that. All right, so that would be one way, family style. Or you can slice it up ahead of time and just plate it up individually. And look at that perfectly cooked and juicy beef tenderloin. I'm telling you, that slow oven and cooking it on top of the sauce really does magical things to this piece of beef. All right, so I'm going to put a little sauce down. I'm going to put my sliced beef right on top of there. That is just beautiful. So anyway, there you go. A simple, easy method for roasting a tenderloin of beef. You can see how perfectly cooked that comes out. And when I cut into that, it was literally like butter. Just so soft, succulent, perfect. That sauce with that little bit of sharpness from the vinegar, the aromatic tarragon, the sweetness from the shallots, that little bit of richness from the cream and butter. Just a magnificent combination. So anyway, if you're splurging for a special occasion roast, this beef tenderloin procedure will produce a very impressive piece of meat. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more information as usual. And as always, enjoy.